Hi, it's Sonia and welcome back to my art YouTube channel. Today I thought I would just go through, have a little flick through, look at some other artists' works and my sort of current three favourite art books that I've been looking through, well, over the last few months, to be honest with you, for quite a while. But I wanted to show these because I thought it's quite nice to look through other people's work, show the insides of these books because there's some beautiful images in here, and also try and show you as well how they've been influencing me, be it in actual sort of taking notes about them and doing sort of copies from them, but also maybe subconsciously how they've been influencing my work. I wonder if I can see, though I haven't, directly, they're my work, my own sort of compositions. I wonder if sometimes we do absorb, we're all absorbing information all the time, let's be honest. And it's just interesting how it comes out. So yeah, let's go. First of all, let's do this book, Enigmas and Variations, Mary Fedden, because I gotta be honest, this is one that I need to get back to. I got it a while ago, and I've some books, to be fair, I just get for the images. This one I wanted to read, and I have read it. I think I've got halfway through. I need to find, but then I sort of put it down. I forgot about it. But yeah, so Mary Fedden, I believe, is a British artist. I love her work particularly because there is a lot of sort of still life paintings. And I guess, yes, if you see my still life sketchbooks and gouache paintings, maybe you can see perhaps why there's a bit of an influence and why I like her work so much. I find it very encouraging to look through, to look at all her, look through here. I love also the fact that this book contains drawings as well, just pencil drawings. But here we've got, fruit and flowers, oil on canvas. And I like the little snippets out. There's one page, I can't know if I'll be able to find it now, but you know how she sort of uses the same, bit like myself, the same jugs and vessels will sort of come back again and again. I think what I particularly liked about her work as well was the fact that she changes things up in terms of sort of the wonky perspectives and also proportions of items sometimes. There's sort of a surrealist element to it and just a really playful quality that really appealed to me and I think it made me more confident because I was feeling drawn increasingly to, I think when I first started off I was trying to do really realistic proportions, botanically sort of relatively accurate still lifes, and that was lovely when I went through that phase. But then I was like, I want to play around more. I was getting myself more attracted to more naive artists' work, and yeah, I wanted to just feel reassured in loosening up and getting a bit more playful. Okay, and then how I use this book. So that's a little flick through, and you can see, yeah, this is, a really nice book. I do mostly borrow them when I can from the library, but I think one of the understandably, art books can be expensive, so obviously libraries may not have all the artists that I want to sort of read about and research. So yeah, I do like to occasionally buy my favourite artists their actual books, so because I do feel like it's, as I say, where possible though, I do try and look up. You can check your library catalogues. This is my Anything Goes journal that I started ages ago. I want to show it because, as I said, when I was reading this book from cover to cover, I'd like to also, to make me focus and make notes, I did a video on mind mapping, probably. It'd be quite nice to come back and sort of mind map a book. But I ended up just sort of writing, going through, and if I ever saw anything that I felt was relevant to my practice or I wanted to have to reflect on later, I've tried to write it down. So yeah, this is, and I've underlined today, I just went quickly back because I'd forgotten, but some of the, for example, just some of the quotes and writing said, like, for example, this is her quote, I guess, "If I was ever completely satisfied with anything, I'd probably give up painting." And I thought that was rather reassuring for us as artists, because I think a lot of us, you know, sometimes you'll get comments where people are like, oh, you should be more confident about yourself, or I guess happy with your own work. But a lot of the time, the joy in art is the sort of challenge of, I've made something, that was good, but I don't love it, and want to move on and do the next thing. Like, you're always wanting to learn or keep going. And yeah, the other interesting, when I think it was the writer of this book was commenting, or someone was writing about it, reflected on the subject of still life, like the history of still life. So she was saying about Mary Fedden, you know, this lack of pretension might also subconsciously have something to do with the history of still life. In past centuries, it was relegated by the art world to the lowest level in the hierarchy of painting genres. History painting was highest. Still life was considered too close to the kitchen or to women's work. Maybe still lifes, and Feddens in particular, do continue to explore the domestic and the ordinary, but they hold their own remarkable, speaking directly to people's shared experience. I might have missed a word there. But the point is, yeah, this, I think, rather spoke to me, because I was like, why am I sort of drawn to still life? And I guess it is maybe sort of the domestic, like being at home, you're surrounded, you're in the kitchen, all these day-to-day, feeding a family. I don't know, there's something about it that also really, that I like it because there's a simplicity to it, there's a beauty to it. But for a lot of us, you know, the table is where the sort of family gathers, and I just, yeah, maybe it is illustrating the domestic, and I'm good with that. And I also like this little section here. So words applied to paintings can sometimes seem unnecessary. What evidently matters most is the feeling a painting gives out, its mood. So that made a lot of sense to me, because even with still lifes, I think you could get to, you know, make sort of a joyful one, a dark one, put in some items that have significance to you. Maybe they're, you know, sort of heirlooms, and like she likes to paint, they are just objects she likes to paint over and over again. So yeah, and then I went on to make more notes about this. Yeah, I did love disproportion. I was really interested in her sort of confidence, as it were, in sort of illustrating things and using, you know, making them deliberately wonky and disproportionate. Gouache, Fedden feels the best of both worlds, and that was something I myself, you know, love, because you can paint thickly, overpaint, and also make it fluid and translucent. And here is just to illustrate a really quick copy with one pen after her red table painting from this book. And then, so I think these ones are about, no, this is about the other book. Okay, so then just to illustrate how I think her work. So this is I have tried to mark pages. No, that's to do with, I want to show that with relation to landscapes. Okay, so just some, obviously very different. Hopefully I'm keeping my style and doing what I want to do. But at the same time, I think this one's not finished, to be honest with you, but I am aware that I love those artists who, I mean, this is quite flat, and then I'm looking down, like, you can play about, like, maybe some would call it whimsy, or naive art. Loosening up. I think I've loosened up in my own way, but it is kind of, I feel much more confident having seen a lot of artists also who have been drawn to similar topics and genres, and, you know, trying to evoke moods maybe with colours, and, you know, you can, with the harshness of lines or heavy pattern, sort of the kitsch versus, and I draw things over and over again, but each time I can make them slightly different, or I can play about with I've talked about this many times, but with ceramics I get bored of drawing the few vases I have, so I make my own up, and that's quite fun. But then when I've had a break from certain vases, they will, I can't find one now, but in general they'll come back, like these pot plants come back again and again. Yeah. Okay, so that was Mary Fedden. David Park. Okay, so I've not actually read much on him. I think I've got the bare bones of about him. Like, I know it says here he's a Boston native, but he did move to California at the age 17 and spent nearly all his adult life in the Bay Area. So I think one of the reasons, yeah, I've sort of seen him, I don't know, online, or maybe it was on a documentary, an art documentary, heard about him, and then I looked further into it. And because, you know, I'm a UK native, I guess, but I'm living in California and the Bay Area, so thus I was sort of quite interested in artists from this area and sort of maybe their depiction of landscapes. But then it turns out I'm also really love figurative art, and he is, you know, well known to be a Bay Area figurative artist. Ooh, that's not great. Dirty. So yeah, I think also when I was researching, I did a portrait workshop and I was wanting to loosen up. I find one of the hardest areas I find to loosen up in is actually in drawing people, because that's when I sort of was going through school and learning to draw. I put a lot of emphasis and weight into sort of getting good at drawing, you know, life drawing, portraiture, like getting a really good likeness. And I guess I wanted to be, so I used to love John Singer Sargent. I wanted to sort of make people look beautiful, to try and flatter as much as possible. And even on my own self-portraits I do, you know. But then at the same time I was really aware, so I really struggled with the idea of how would you loosen up drawing people. That was a bit more of a, but I want to at the same time. Like, I think there is, you know, there's and it's almost like maybe that can also make some of these big, one thing I'm aware of sometimes with figurative art or narrative art is if the person is too recognisable or it's about your family, then I guess for other people, can they see themselves in that painting? Whereas maybe if it's a bit more, if it's a little bit more rustic and bare, maybe there is a little, we know it's sort of, I like this sketch here. Also reminds me a bit of Francis Bacon. That sort of, I feel like you can put more of a mood and atmosphere yourself onto it, a bit like with abstracts maybe. These are just my personal, like I'm just riffing right away. But these, I love these little, like, not many sort of, as it were, it's not terribly detailed or the brush strokes, but the bare minimum, but yet they're rather, you know, pleasing to look at. So how has this come? Then when I was designing, I wanted some fun exercises at the end of a portrait workshop, because I know portraiture can be, and this is knowing from my own experience, quite frustrating at times. Like if you've put a lot of work in, an hour or two, and then you end up with a portrait and the lightness isn't there, or it doesn't go well, like, oh. So what I wanted was also some little exercises, quick little exercises that you could do at the end or the beginning, so, but to loosen up, and just fun ones. So one of them, I called it the David Park exercise. It was based off this book. And then this is my altered, so I had to deliberately mark, because I've got so many markers in here. Where is it? Yeah. So the idea being, I was sort of saying, well, have a look at his work, like breaking something down to the bare bones, so you can just break a face and try and get an image without going, as it were, to getting caught up in a very detailed, like with your pencil, like the eye, and then just go really quickly and try and do that in. You could get the elements. I think I've got more examples of that are better actually. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I called it economy of line and maybe minimalism from my point of view. I wanted people to have a go at minimalism. How could you get a face down? Like, this is an oil pastel in barely any lines, and that's like a few minutes. And I think with that, it gives you scope to play, because if that goes wrong, you go on to another one. And generally, you'll get a face you're quite happy with quite quickly. Okay, whoops. And so, yeah, then this one here, you can see, I'm not sure if it was this one, it might have been. I then had fun in this book with oil pastel, and I've got to be honest with you, I want to love oil pastels, but I find them really highly messy, especially the really, really soft ones. But in a way, they are great because you have hardly any control, and I thought how I like to use them now is in this really loose portrait show. You can go over the top, over the top. There's a Japanese artist, when I was on Instagram, and I used to love seeing his work. I can't remember, it's K, I can't remember. But he also you could see me do reels where he just went on top and on top and on top and just build up. And you can do that with oil pastels, and you get these quite fun, smudgy effects. And now you might be asking, because this is something that does bother me with oil pastels, fixing them, because obviously I've used here, I learned I could cover it with some, I believe this is either matte medium or clear gesso, and that now is fixed. And then I've got another one in this book on this page. It was interesting because this is on top of a sort of an acrylic, which was quite shiny. And again, I've come on top after David Park, and I've come on top with oil pastels. Oh, and that's that sketch. I really like that pencil sketch I had to go with, but drawing with, I guess that looks like colour too. So yeah, just to show, these are sort of more directly influenced, but I guess then they come into my drawing. That's not really, that's more me going traditional gouache. Just trying to see, have I done one of them myself, like that sort of very loose style? Well, maybe that's a bit David Park like. Guess here a little bit more influenced, going loose. Oh, this one, oh gosh, that's really heavy with oil pastel. Is it? Maybe. Anyway, so that's me trying to show how you can look at a book, and then it can be a nice jumping off point for your work as well. And you can also do direct studies, okay? Okay, I'm having to refilm this segment for my last book to talk about the next day, because on editing my video, I realised, I just needed to maybe make it a bit briefer. And also, you may have noticed I've had to edit this video a bit because I've been a bit hoarse, so I was having to cut out segments and and things. And also, so yeah, let me crack on with this book today. I don't want to spend too long on it, but basically, this book is Matthew Wong and then Vincent van Gogh, Painting as a Last Resort. Just out of interest, because I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, because I was like, am I pronouncing his name wrong, Van Gogh? And in terms of the original Dutch pronunciation, yes, and I'm not even going to attempt that because I listened to a program on it. But just out of interest, like in Britain, I heard a YouTube short on it, and the guy was saying in Britain, so I grew up learning to say Vincent van Gogh, and this is where the confusion strikes, because I'm now in America, my children were saying Vincent van Gogh, and I was like, oh, what is the right? Yeah, so that's me going off down a rabbit hole, and why sometimes I get just go off learning information, I guess. But this book, let's get back to this book. This book is really one that I'd been sort of on my wish list, because I'd become aware of Matthew Wong's work, I think online, like on a Pinterest board. I'd seen his work somewhere, maybe Instagram, ages ago. And I didn't know anything about him, and I'd read a few articles. And then, unfortunately, my library didn't have this book, so I waited till it came down to a price I was happy with. And I really am glad that I purchased it, because I think his work speaks to me, especially I've marked this one because it's like one of my favourites of his. Really speaks to me in how he approaches sort of landscapes. I mean, you can always see the obvious connections, and he studied Van Gogh himself and was super interested in the lives of painters. Just a quick brief history, because I'm probably not going to explain it very well, but he was a Chinese Canadian artist who, it's quite sad, his life, he ended in his early 30s. He had a history in childhood of autism spectrum disorder, and I think I saw on Wikipedia Tourette's and depression. So he definitely, when you read about him, had his struggles, and he was looking for something in his life. Like, I think he started off as a photographer, but when he found painting, he went 100% into it. And I think that this is, the title is Painting as a Last Resort. I think he saw it as sort of a way of finding, I guess, maybe meaning, I don't know. but he really embraced it and put his all into it, which you can, because he created an immense amount of work, considering he found it in his, sort of went all in his 20s and then, you know, died in his 30s. So he's left an amazing body of work, and he did, while he was alive, achieve a lot of he got into some major art galleries and museums. People definitely were recognizing him. And you sort of also, I wonder if that's the converse side of fame, isn't it, and pressure sometimes, if so people say be careful what you wish for. But yeah, so here's a lovely panel of his works. I just think there's so much to look at in them, and I love how sort of the because I love to use as well, I was finding in my abstract work, the repetition of dashes and marks, and sort of the sort of, there's definitely, I feel, a mood and atmosphere here in his work, like lots of, yeah. So I think you can probably see perhaps why I was drawn to it. And yeah, so it was definitely interesting to, I've definitely read this book as well. I've read from cover to cover. And I like also how they do bring in other artists, so you can see their influence, how much he did really go down rabbit holes himself and study artists. Like we've got, I'm not even going to pronounce his name right, am I? Someone Soutine. There's Matisse, there's comparisons with Matisse as well. So also reassuring to us artists, you know, throughout history, artists have always been inspired by other artists, but through that, he's gone off to make his own unique body of work, and yeah, to develop his style. I like also how when they put, you get to see in books sometimes the drawings as well. Okay, now on to maybe relate it to how do I think it's come into, or his work has inspired mine maybe. I think, so I have to show you, it's more actually in very experimental ways, like, I'm not sure, where is, I tried to mark my pages. So I think it's allowed me to get even more, seeing some of this more experimental landscape work, and it's not just Matthew Wong's, but just being aware of it has allowed me to really push myself, and to go more, as I spoke about with sort of maybe still life, like use my memory. Like I don't always have to have direct references. In actual fact, I do think if I've got a too overwhelming, like a beautiful famous landscape, I think that can be quite overwhelming sometimes if you want to loosen up, because you've seen other artists portray that scene beautifully, or the original photo or your original image is so beautiful. How do you then, you know, like, I find it harder to loosen up, and sometimes I can tell in my more tight gouache sketches if I've been a bit maybe intimidated by a scene. However, I mean, this one here, this was a palette, I think I've shown this one before, but I think this illustrates to me, and maybe looking, I think had been influenced by both Vincent van Gogh and Matthew Wong's. They're sort of that loose, the brush strokes. It's not as, they're sort of demarcated, like well isolated, not having to sort of blend or beautifully illustrate a tree has allowed me, also freed me up in my work to just experiment, just to try different, to look at the texture and the marks in terms of building up an imaginary landscape and landscape from memory. And here, for example, this one is really the colour, thinking about, or not thinking about colour, I should say more appropriately. I guess I've kept, this is obviously in some ways, well, looks like a sky. I mean, I haven't gone completely left field, but yeah, I think you can see, maybe, I think we sometimes look at work, and even though I wasn't necessarily, I'm not trying to make, there's nothing wrong, but I don't necessarily want to make copies of his work, but I think his elements of these sort of painters maybe are coming into my work as well. And more I have to do that is more, not in finished pieces, because I don't feel comfortable yet making my own sort of canvases necessarily like that. But they're coming out in sort of on bits of paper, when I've got odd bits of paper and just having great fun experimenting with the materials that I have. So this one I rather like. Sorry, I've got still a bit sniffy. And I've covered it. I wanted to experiment. I wanted it to be glossy, and I accidentally brought gloss medium once, so I was like, let's use it. And I really like how this texture. This is over the top of lots of what's it called? Scratching out crayons underneath, just layering up. And I also really love using, if I find fragments of a piece on paper, I'm now sticking it into this like working sketchbook, and I wanted to make a note that I really was to remember to score more. Like there's some scoring out going on here, and also mark making, this just random mark making. I think I was just testing a pen, but I'm like, I like that. Why am I not doing that more on some pieces? So yeah, and then on just to finish up this video, several larger works on paper, but they're still scrappy bits of paper. At some point I think I am going to then transfer these sort of my style and have a go with some more finished pieces on Bristol paper, now that I'm learning. But I really like these. So this is a drawing paper, but with gouache I can go quite. The basis of this was, as you can see, I'm hopefully right, but beneath I started off with a very super wishy-washy Japanese watercolour piece, and then it reminded me of a scene. I think I was sort of thinking a little bit of oh gosh, where was it? Maybe Arches and Joshua National Park and Joshua Tree National Park, and then it's just sort of it just sort of grew with the colours I had, but I kind of like the results. Okay, so I hope this video ends up fitting together and making some sense. Thank you for watching, and I hope maybe it's giving you some ideas, or maybe hopefully you've been drawing as I've been talking, and or a reminder maybe to have a look through your if you've got any art books at home that you've not reviewed for a while, or maybe want to search up some at the library. Okay, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.